The Dodge Ramcharger.
Tough and dependable. That's the 1977 Ramcharger.
Major competitor to vehicles such as the Ford Bronco, the K5 Blazer, and along with its sister vehicle, the Plymouth Trail Duster. They were produced from years 1974 through 1981 for the Plymouth Trail Duster and 1974 through 1993 for the Dodge Ramcharger. Originally available through 1974 through 1980 with a removable hard or soft top. As much as I would personally prefer to be able to remove the top from my own Dodge Ramcharger to be able to take to the beach for a fun time, it's understandable why in 1981 Dodge decided they would no longer be producing the vehicles in this manner. However, back in the time these vehicles were produced, removable tops were made of steel construction, and in the case of the Dodge Ramcharger and Plymouth Trail Duster, weighed over 300 pounds. Many of the popular Chrysler Corporation drivetrains that were seen in many of the sedans, wagons, and vans of the era were also in the Dodge Ramcharger at the time. Early vehicles were available with a plethora of options, such as the Slant 6, the Dodge 440, and engines such as the LA Small Blocks, the LA 318, the LA 360. The majority of these vehicles you see nowadays, such as the second generation that's behind me here, you'll find with the Dodge 318 and sometimes with the Dodge 360 5.9 liter engine. Some versions are carbureted, some versions are electronic fuel injection. If you're looking at getting into the vintage 4x4 crowd these days and you don't want to spend the money for a Toyota Land Cruiser, you don't want to spend the money for a Ford Bronco or a K5 Blazer, you may want to consider looking into getting a Dodge Ramcharger. A lot of these are still very reasonably priced. You don't see a lot of them around, but they're there if you look. Another benefit of getting a Dodge Ramcharger is the interchangeability of parts between the Power Wagons, the regular pickups, and the Dodge Ramcharger. As fantastic as the drivetrains were on many of Chrysler's vehicles at the time, there was always the problem of rust issues. No matter how good the drivetrain was, there was just the problem of water getting into the body parts and rotting them out. As a result, many of these vehicles, if you can find them in a rust-free state, demand a very high premium in today's market. This particular Dodge Ramcharger has a Dodge 360 engine. It has an Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetor on it. Coupled to that engine is a TorqueFlite 727 automatic 3-speed transmission, which has an incredible reputation for reliability. Coupled to the back of that transmission is an NP208D transfer case. It has options of 2 high, 4 high, and also when it came from the factory, it had a vacuum actuated axle lock in the front, which in many cases fails. This vehicle here has had a conversion done to it that allows a cable to actuate the front axle lock as opposed to using vacuum, thus being more reliable and easier to control, plus adding the ability to have 2 low instead of just 4 low. I found this vehicle in mid-2020 on a local Facebook ad when I was at the time looking for possibly maybe a Jeep J10 Gladiator, a CJ5, or something similar. However, I came across this vehicle and it was in someone's yard and I was able to get it for about a $600 value. I leaned more towards this vehicle once I saw it because when I was younger, my uncle actually had one of these with the removable tops that used to sit in our yard when I was a kid. And we used to always go in the backyard and play with it. So that's my personal connection. Over the past year, I've done many things to this vehicle. First starting from getting it mechanically sound and then beginning to start to do some of the cosmetic stuff you see now. When we found the vehicle, it wouldn't even roll. We had to unbolt the drive shafts and drag it. The condition I got it in at first was horrible. You couldn't easily open a door. You couldn't open the back hatch. It had been permanently sealed shut. The inside just looked like a total chicken coop. I brought it back to my mom and dad's place because my dad was building a shop. I have a feeling they were looking at me and they were thinking, I don't know if you can manage this. And I personally was thinking, I don't know what I've gotten myself into, but you know what, let's give it a shot. So eventually we started to tinker with the engine. The whole ignition system had issues. It had bad ignition switch, it had bad wiring, it had It had a bunch of problems, so eventually what just happened was I went on Summit and I bought an entire ignition system kit and reinstalled a new ignition system, and eventually we were able to get spark and get the engine to turn over. Once that happened, we immediately noticed there was a massive overheating issue. The engine wouldn't idle, there was bad compression on cylinders 5 and 7, and I was thinking to myself, maybe this was a bad idea, maybe I shouldn't have brought it home. And the more I thought about it, the more I just became determined not to give up. About 6 months later, I had the time to really just get in there and tear the engine down and see what was going on, what was wrong. I had never torn into an engine myself before. This was my first, everything on here I was learning for the first time. So I got in there, I disassembled the engine, I took the intake off, I took the heads off, I went and got myself an engine hoist and pulled the block out. Everyone kept telling me at the time, oh, you're having an overheating issue. It's probably that you have warped heads because the engines on these vehicles have cast iron heads. Incredibly, that turned out not to be the case. The thing that killed this truck was someone had reassembled it, and instead of torquing all of the head bolts on the driver's side head, someone had left a head bolt between cylinders 5 and 7 finger tight, causing it not to seal. So I ordered some new head gaskets from Rock Auto, had them sent to the house, decided, you know what, before I sink a bunch of money into engine rebuild, let's just spend the cost of a few head gaskets. I'll put it back together, and you know what, if it works, awesome. So we did that, turned the key, perfect compression on all cylinders. Put all the rest of the components back on the engine, started it up, it fired, it was running, but it was still getting hot. And actually, in the end, the problem was not the cooling system. The problem was that the distributor could not rotate far enough to get the appropriate timing. So we took the distributor, rotated it 180 degrees so that the vacuum advance would stick in a different direction. Boom, perfect timing, perfect cooling, engine runs flawlessly. The next step after that was to fill the transmission to the appropriate level and see if that even worked. I changed the filter, I changed the gasket on the transmission. As I said, it's a TorqueFlite 727, which has a pretty good reputation for being an awesome, reliable transmission. Stuck it in neutral for the first time so that the fluids could pump back through the system. It's probably been a good 6 or 7 months since that day, and it's ran awesome. In that time, though, there were a number of other issues that came up. A really big one was that the rear end had almost zero fluid inside of it. I was out driving one day, and all of a sudden a strange hiccupy, screechy, squeaky noise appeared with some grinding and some other odd noises. It was actually the rear bearings were totally toast. They had come completely apart from the carriers the cage that it's held in. There were bearings like down the axle shaft, halfway down from the outside towards where the differential was. They took that all apart, put new bearings in, put new fluid, flushed it a couple times, and since then the whole truck has been very, very quiet running. At this point, it's October 2021, and so many things have been fixed on this vehicle. Almost every single system on here I have fixed and is working almost flawlessly. So actually, let me go grab my records and just run through real fast all of the things that have been done to this vehicle. New ignition system, new distributor, new starter relay, new ECU harness, new window motors, new door pins and seals, engine removed, torn down to short block, reassembled, new head gaskets, normal compression restored, new engine mounts, new water pump, new hoses, new belts, new radiator from Napa, new thermostat, new temperature sensor, new transmission filter, and oil seal replaced, new U-joints on the rear drive shaft, new steering shaft with a U-joint, steering column swapped from the donor vehicle, and actually, that's another thing I didn't mention. I found a donor vehicle in Pensacola, Florida that was 1 hour away from being scrapped, that had been floating around from scrapyard to scrapyard. I got a hold of that for a good price, and it was invaluable as far as the parts that I pulled off of that to put into this vehicle to make everything good to go. New tires, new speedometer, turbine wheels came from the other vehicle, new brakes front and rear, alignment, shocks, rear wheel bearings, new rear axle seals, new rear pinion seal, new rear end fluid, new alternator, heater box rebuilt, new heater core, new new heater core, new evaporator, new condenser, new lines, new AC lines, new AC pressure switch and adapter, new UAC, AC compressor, new expansion valve, new air dryer, new engine fan clutch, blah, 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 and there's a couple more pages of stuff. So, learning process working on this vehicle. Another big perk of this vehicle when I got it was, as bad as it was on the outside, cosmetically, someone had rolled bed liner on the roof, undercoating on the rockers, some type of primer. I think it was a 2K primer they had maybe sprayed on the side, and then the interior was filthy. But the best thing about this vehicle is it came from Los Angeles, California. And if you know anything about California cars, you know that the majority of the time they're almost completely rust-free. And this vehicle is, with a couple tiny exceptions that are hardly worth mentioning, completely and utterly rust-free. From the paperwork I could find in the vehicle, rummaging through it, someone owned it in Los Angeles, then someone else took it to, I believe, New Mexico, Texas, and then finally someone in the Air Force brought it here to the Florida Panhandle at Eglin Air Force Base, and then the gentleman I got it from that gentleman, and it just sat in his yard for a while. And the interior was dirty, but all the upholstery is in immaculate condition. There's no rips, there's no stains really to speak of. The carpet isn't that great, but the carpet cleaned up pretty well. All in all, I'm very happy that I got this vehicle. And I think right now I'm pretty much total cost, not including my own labor I put into it, but total cost parts wise, I'm probably between $25,000 and $3,000 into the vehicle. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. I'm hoping to do more videos in the future. This is one of my first ones. If you happen to have any information you think would be helpful for me in this project, you can put it down there. If you know someone in the Florida Panhandle area who does really good paint, you could put that down there too, because I'm looking for someone. Anyways, God bless. Have a good evening.